It's a world of echoing footsteps, of corridors and white coats. A system for storing Russia's unwanted children.
It was never spoken of, but this place was meant for children to be kept until they will die.
Children's Home Number 4 near St. Petersburg is just one of Russia's nearly 2,000 orphanages. This is how breakfast arrives for the 400 children it houses. By contrast, children's homes in England usually only have 3 or 4 residents. In Russia, most children in institutions have living parents, but like 14-year-old Sonia, they're social orphans because their families didn't want them.
Когда я родила, там что-то у меня были какие-то проблемы, и в больнице сказали, что я, умерла. И, как сказать, не умерла, но что я не смогу долго жить. И родители, они отказались от меня.
Here, all the children have learning difficulties, and many are physically disabled too. Vanya was abandoned by his mother when he developed cerebral palsy at the age of 8.
Она заперлась в ванной комнате, чтобы меня не видеть. И я стучался в стекло двери. И рыдал я даже. Но это не помогало. Потому что я понял, что это бесполезно. Если человек тебя бросил, то ты, получается, ему не нужен.
You can hear many heartbreaking stories here. Ill or disabled children are often handed over to the state by their parents at the urging of doctors. That's why the proportion of children who are orphans in Russia is more than 4 times that in most Western European countries, and why nearly half those in residential care are disabled. For decades, tens of thousands of Russian children have languished in orphanages like this, largely forgotten by the outside world. Now, the Kremlin's launched a program to try to find them all real homes. The first steps to open orphanages to the outside world, and extraordinarily, at orphanage number 4, the state's appointed a deputy director who wasn't a civil servant, but comes from an independent children's charity. Andrei Dombrovsky arrived here determined to end a system where children, particularly the younger and more disabled ones, spent much of the day just gazing at the ceiling. The problem wasn't lack of resources. Russian orphanages nowadays are well financed. Rather, it's that many staff didn't believe children needed any form of stimulation.
While talking with the staff members, and we sometimes have quite many conflicts and disagreements, I clearly hear that, if a person is going to die in a short time, should you really disturb him and make noise and make some arrangements and festivals? Maybe it should be calm and clean and just child is laying in the bed and don't touch him.
Till recently, they were described officially as imbeciles and cretins and treated as uneducable. Now, at last, some children at the home are getting a taste of the outside world. They are being taught in a special class at a school where they mix with ordinary children. Once that would have been impossible. And back at the home, ordinary adults, volunteers, are now coming in from the outside world. They build personal bonds with children who had no one to relate to before. The more the place opens up, the greater the chance orphans might eventually move out to live with foster carers, leaving the orphanage as a centre for activities and services.
Our dream and proposal is to transform this kind of institutions to the institutions which support families. For example, it could be daycare centers here, or it could be specialists here who can support families, original family who could keep this child, or foster family who could take it. They don't have enough support.
In the cold of the outside world, lack of support forces many parents to give up their children. Natalia Kozareva handed her son Maxim over to Children's Home number 4 when he was 8 years old. A single mother with another son to look after too, she couldn't cope on her own with a boy with cerebral palsy. Eventually though, she brought him back home.
Даже он там был, 4 года. 4 года я просто страдала. А сейчас я его забрала, мне легко, хорошо. Он рядом. У меня душа спокойно стала, и сердце.
But her life's a lot harder. It's 4 floors down to the street, with no lift.
А как мы справляемся? Мы просто живем. Как мы справляемся? Вот он гулять просится, раз в неделю выйду. Спустюсь, кто-то поможет поднять. Написала письмо в администрацию с помощью, чтобы помогли мне с этим, поменять квартиру. Но пока ответа нет.
It's rare to take back a disabled child, rarer still to take someone else's. Besides the practical difficulties and attitudes to disability, there are also lingering prejudices against adoption in general. But as the Soviet past grows more distant and living standards rise, some now want to help personally with social problems they once left to the state. And the authorities are keen to make fostering and adopting more attractive. They run classes for those considering taking an orphan. For foster parents, there are now more state benefits. In St. Petersburg, equivalent to about half an average salary for a first fostered child. And for adoptive parents, there's less social stigma.
Многие же боятся и стесняются, потому что, как сказать, стыдно, наверное, кому-то что-то. А чего стыдиться-то? Вы знаете, вот по поводу стыдно, не стыдно. Более стыдно иметь обществу столько детей-сирот. Понимаете, более стыдно, когда они вырастают и потенциально стартуют не на нормальной профессии, учебу и в новую жизнь, а когда они становятся девочки на панели, а мальчики в преступный мир. Вот за это стыдно, какой-то баланс для общества.
But of course, Russia's a vast country. Leave westward facing St. Petersburg and journey 1,100 miles south to where the Volga reaches the Caspian Sea. You'll come to the old fortress city of Astrakhan. Where demands for reform are falling on deaf ears. Provincial governors across Russia have been told that from now on, getting children out of orphanages is one of the main things they'll be judged on. But in places like this, far from Moscow, the system's stubbornly resistant to change. I've come here to meet a woman now famous for battling that system. Есть ваша семья? Это ваша семья, да?
Это Рома.
Рома?
Ему 17.
17.
Это Маша.
Vera Drobinskaya has fostered a whole new family of children rescued from institutions. And so this isn't even all of them, there's one who isn't even here. So seven children altogether. For years, local officials refused to release the children. Now she's transformed their lives. Before, they had hardly any education. Now, most go to ordinary schools. She used to be a doctor, but the children take up almost all her time now. She survives on odd jobs and benefits. It's a bit chaotic around here, as you can see, but this is exactly the kind of loving family that the Russian authorities say they want to encourage. And yet, Vera's had to fight every inch of the way for the right to foster them. Vera's taking me to see the home in a remote village, Raznachinovka, that several of her children come from. On its edge, a cemetery where she discovered at least 41 orphans were buried over 10 years, many with no name to mark their grave.
А это проблема того, что дети инвалиды, тяжело больные. И я слышала от персонала, который здесь работал, я слышала, они сами мне говорили, их родители бросили, а вы хотите, чтобы мы смотрели? Вот так. И так говорили, что они, все равно инвалиды, кому они нужны.
This desolate spot has seen top Kremlin officials, police, prosecutors and journalists come and go since Vera raised the alarm, earning her the enmity of the local authorities. This is her video of conditions inside the home in 2005. Pictures that shocked the nation. Today, in bitterly cold weather, there's no sign of life at the home. We asked in advance for permission to visit, but we were refused.
У нас есть для этого директор. Если надо, он с вами свяжется.
But it turns out the director's on the phone, and she offers to meet us the following day. Sergei Golikov won't comment on the ongoing investigation into child deaths, because he was only appointed last August. But he says the home's now improving fast.
Есть такая программа, мы сейчас разрабатываем. Первый раз вот именно для детей для умственных отсталых это создание семейной группы. Семейная группа это будет числиться у меня в воспитательном штате стоять. И будет просто брать там, пока мы сейчас планируем до 3 детей, себе домой.
But Vera's worried there's little outside scrutiny of the institution.
Я думаю, что если бы у нас были открыты вот эти детские дома и больше общения между детьми-сиротами и простыми людьми, то у нас очень быстро не осталось бы вообще детей-сирот, всех бы разобрали. У нас очень сильно препятствует вот эта вот государственная система.
The number of Russian children in institutions is falling, but at least partly because low birth rates mean fewer children overall. As for plans to dismantle the orphanage system completely, they've been made and abandoned before, opposed by officials who benefit from the state funding orphans bring.
It's huge resistance of the system, which want to keep money, to keep working places, jobs, and so on. And it's really difficult to overcome this resistance.
Back on the outskirts of St. Petersburg, another institution, a mental asylum, is now home to Vanya, the boy abandoned by his mother when he was 8. He's now an adult. He and his friend Sasha are allowed out for the day, and they can cope well on their own. But for most disabled orphans like them, there's no real escape from a system which brands them at an early age as uneducable and incapable of independent living, and so condemns them to institutions for life. Sonia, 6 years younger, is confident she will break free. She never thought she'd learn to walk, just as she never thought she'd get an outside education.
18 лет, дети уезжают в пни. Кто не может самостоятельно жить. Я думаю, что я смогу самостоятельно жить. Я для этого в школе учу там математика, там считать, читаю. Это сразу. Вот. Я думаю, что я пойду в самостоятельную жизнь. У меня получится.
Life is opening up for a few of Russia's orphans, but it'll still be a long